Hey, YouTube worked this time. Awesome. I love it when that happens. Because after the last time, I'll tell you what, guys, I was not sure if it was going to work today. Not going to say it was Friday the 13th, but might have been Friday the 13th. So I'm super excited about the lineup of questions today. To be perfectly frank, I went to Quora and did some exploring on there, and I found some awesome questions that I thought would be super beneficial to you guys. If you haven't already, make sure that you go down and hit subscribe and the bell so that way you know when I'm posting new content or going live. That's the easiest way. But if you follow me on Twitter, on Facebook, or on YouTube, I typically will post updates and let you guys know that way as well. As you can see, I have a lovely new to me bookshelf. Spent some time on working on that this week, and the second one is out off gassing because enclosed space plus spray paint, not good. So, and super excited, I have a new microphone coming. You guys might not care, but I am super excited because one, I won't have to be wearing the headbuds anymore or the earbuds anymore because this is the best mic that I have because this one does not seem to want to work with my laptop. So I said, bugger it all. I got a free $25 gift card for leaving a review somewhere, and I went shopping. So anyway, that's enough about me and kind of the updates. Okay, nope, I lied. I have one more update. This one I am so excited about to share with you guys. So I have been doing a butt ton of learning the last 3 or 4 days because I can't even begin to tell you. I am going to be launching in the next couple of months, sooner if possible, a Teachable Course. If you're not familiar with what Teachable is, it's an online platform where you can go purchase a course and learn. Very similar to Udemy, and I'm sure there's other places out there similar, but this platform is called Teachable. And based on the summit that I've watched, this is where I'm going to be launching a Getting Your Story Started course. So it is going to be a comprehensive course on how to get your story started. I am so excited about this. I absolutely cannot wait, and I will keep you guys updated on that as I go. If you want to see a few more updates, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. I guess I'm on Instagram too. That's the place to do it. And you can find me at the editing bar pretty much everywhere. Okay, enough of that. I am going to be trying out something new today where I actually try and learn to use my cell phone, apparently. I'm going to time myself for each question. So y'all know how much I can talk. So I'm going to try and give myself Nope. Okay. We're just going to roll with it. 10 minutes. 10 minutes per question. We're going to see how that goes. One, because there was a ton of questions that I found that I wanted to address. And two, you guys know I talk a lot. And I get onto ranty sidetracks. Chat is open. So if you are, if you're able to see the show notes, which they should be listed down below, and you have an additional question, hey, if you have an additional question that you want answered, please feel free to express it over into the chat, and I will address it. Okay, so let's get rolling here. Now, this first one I actually got from a follower on Twitter. start the timer. And she's also a client of mine. Her name's Branwyn. The question is, anyone know any good, and I asked permission to use this one because it was awesome. Anyone know good resources for how to follow a theme throughout a series or trilogy? I need to know, I know I need an overarching theme and one for each book, but anyone know any more than that and willing to share suggestions or resources? So for that, I had given a shorter answer on Twitter due to the character restrictions. So when you're looking at your overarching series and you want to plan to have a main theme throughout, you really have to take a step back and look at it from like 1,000 feet above. And how that typically looks is that you have to put, you have to look at it from a more analytical mindset to an extent. You can't look at it strictly through the lens of emotions because you're too close to it. And you need to be able to analyze, does this overarching theme flow through all the books? As an example, I have a 12-book fantasy series planned out. And in this fantasy series, the overarching theme is going to be following one man's journey and his relationship with God. It is going to be following multiple people with their relationships and their struggles and how they relate to God. But in order to keep that, I have to see how it flows throughout the rest of the series. And I have to do that by taking a step back and look at it and be like, okay, book 1, book 2, book 3, etc. And then once I know what my theme is, I zoom in a little bit and be like, okay, what's this trilogy theme going to be? And then you mark out using the milestone method or whatever is the most comfortable way of outlining to you. And you go, okay, this is the big questions that I'm going to address in these 3 books, not over the series, these 3 books, because we've zoomed in. Okay, well, we have this. Great. Now we're going to zoom into the book. Like, what theme, what question does this book address that's a part of the larger theme, but it's really focused in on this story? Because this book is going to center around typically a character or a set of characters. And that is really where you need to have a little bit of finessing. And really, you can do it after you've finished your first draft. It's still manageable during the first draft to be able to kind of fiddle with it a little bit without feeling like you're too restricted. And for a theme, it could be love and friendship. That's the overarching theme that for your entire series. So if that's your big theme, then when you zoom into the trilogies, then you have to look at, okay, like, how do I showcase this here in this? And then when you get further and you look at the book, how does it correlate to the stories that I am telling in the book? How is the protagonist handling relationships? Are they able to have relationships? Are they closed off? Are they open? These are the kinds of questions that you have to start asking yourself when you get to that point. But you have to start big. You have to see that big picture, and then you work your way down to that. So if you guys have any additional questions about that, please let me know. I managed to do that in 5 minutes. Go me. Feeling pretty good about that. Let's see. All right. So next one is, and the rest of these are ones that I found on Quora that I thought were that really stood out to me. So next one, what is the triggering factor that made you finally do what you wanted to do for years and years? Be it losing weight, writing a book, finishing a degree, etc. Now, I thought that was an interesting question because, most people, when I tell them that I wanted to be an editor or I wanted to be an author, they just kind of give me this weird look of like, but why? Why would you want to do that? Like, do authors even make money? And depending on how famous you are, that could be maybe, like enough to eat, maybe not do much else. But I think so. For me, the reason why this question kind of stood out is because we all have that triggering factor that made us like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I forgot to hit the timer. This is that moment that just jumps out to me and says, this is it. This is the defining moment. For me, that was when I was 16. So this is when I wanted to become an author. When I was 16, I was homeschooled, and our tutor had an assignment for us, and we needed to write a poem about something. Subject could be anything that we wanted it to be, but we couldn't tell what it was. We had to use the verses to describe it. And I wrote a poem. It's my all-time favorite poem. Sadly, it's lost now. And I don't remember how it went. I just know what it was about. And it was about the forging of a sword from the sword's perspective. So going from just a raw ingot to being plunged into the flames, pulled out, hammered, cooled, back into the flames, and then polished and sharpened. And I loved it. The visuals that came to mind when I started doing that just blew me away. And now, mind you, I had loved fantasy. I'd loved Lord of the Rings. I was involved in multiple RPGs on Tolkien.net. NarniaFans.net was another one that I was involved in, doing RPGs. And so I had some background with storytelling and doing that kind of stuff, but that was the defining moment that made me go, I want to write and I want to be an author. And then it was at that point that I started writing Narnia fan fiction. And then I started, after that, I think it was, I want to say when I was 17 is when we were driving somewhere with my mom and my sister. And I was like, I don't want to get sued for plagiarism, and I can't publish this. I'm going to write my own book. And that's how my fantasy series got started. It started off as a single book, and then it turned into a trilogy. And then I rewrote the plot 4 different times over the course of the years, and then threw it out and said, screw it, I'm done with it for a while. Went back to writing fan fiction, and then did that for about 2 years. And then just this year started my fantasy novel, which was the puzzle piece that I had been missing that completed my 12-book series. And so now everything is it's like coming together, and I have a first draft written for the second trilogy. I have a first draft written for the first trilogy. So it's basically a matter of going back and doing all that. So not to get too much off the sidetracked, but I would love to know, what was that moment for you guys? What moment was there where you were just like, I have to do this? So tell me over in the chat. And for those of you who are going to be watching this video after this is live, please post it down in the comments. I really want to know. I am super interested in how people come to this point where they're like, I want to write. Or even if it's not writing, if you're starting up a business, or you're doing something else, what was that life-changing moment that was just like, I have to do this thing now? So again, chat's open. Put it over there if you're comfortable with it, or comment down below if you're watching this after. So yeah, that's pretty much what it was for me. When it comes to my business, it was not last May, not this past May, 2018 May. Yeah, it was in 2018, May of 2018. I wanted to get more into writing as a career choice. And so that's what I decided to start doing. And I got cold feet and ran. And I was just like, nope, too hard, not going to do it. Fast forward 2 months and I was like, I'm ready to do this. I can see myself doing it. And I don't remember exactly what it was that triggered that, but I just remembered it was July. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do freelance writing. Started learning about freelancing. At the same time, I was already on Wattpad and I was doing book reviews. So I already had kind of had some practice, as it were, for kind of honing what I've been developing. And then I moved. I spent all of about a week with ghostwriting, and realized that I was not going to be able to do ghostwriting, mainly because I don't think I could work with other authors who had these kind of, the one I did wasn't exactly like, he wanted something that was that I had felt was inappropriate, and he was unwilling to budge on it. It was okay, difference of opinion, and decided to say, hey, no thanks. Started focusing on my own book, rebuilt my website again for the third time at that point, and it basically looked like Chuck E. Cheese had regurgitated all over my website, because there was colors and there was pictures and there was just all of this madness, and it was too much. And then I had injured my shoulder in November. And so I was like, I really have to do something because I'm not able to use my shoulder. Come February is when I was like, you know what? I had just discovered that developmental editing was a thing. I was like, I can do that. I can see big pictures. I can see people's visions for their work, and I can help them do that thing. Because it didn't focus on the grammar, it didn't focus on syntax or punctuation. It was, does the story work? And I can do stories. I've been storytelling my whole life. Watch any embarrassing family video. I am literally playing National Geographic. I was like a mini David Attenborough. It's like, here we see the mountain goats running down the mountain. Then my dad's all like, they're bighorn sheep. I'm like, that's what I said. The mountain goats are running down the mountain. And so storytelling is in my blood. This is what I can do. And so I decided to start helping people with that. Got on Fiverr, but that was kind of that moment where it was that aha moment. And then coaching developed from that, because as I learned for myself what was a good writing process, how I could replicate and make processes. I've been a trainer in almost every single job that I've had. And I've taken the really crappy training that was given to me and I turned it into something better. So that way, when those people went to work in that particular section, they were the best because I had created a process that was easy to understand that I had not learned. And so they were doing it better. Same thing with, what I'm doing for you guys. Like the stuff that I give you is stuff that is hopefully going to make you better and help give you tools and resources that you can take and apply in your own writing and in your own style. Okay, so managed to do that in 9.5 minutes. So a little longer there, but I think I'm improving, right? Let's see. Okay, next question is, what are some good tips for an amateur writer for writing short stories? Boom. I don't write short stories. I'll be honest with you. I have write-a-series-itis, and it's a terminal writing illness. I don't think that there's a cure for write-a-series-itis, but if you have write-a-series-itis, you know. For writing short stories, the ones that the one shots that I've done, I had to have a very clear focus and I was working within a constraint. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you are going to want a writing goal, something to work towards. What is your word count goal? Well, a short story is, at least the last definition that I had looked at, anywhere between 0 and I think 7.5 to 10,000 words. I think novella is like 15 to 20, and then somewhere in that range. It kind of depends on what genre, which is even more frustrating because it just seems to change all the friggin' time. But that would be my first suggestion, is look up for your genre that you're writing in, and we'll talk about that in kind of picking a genre. Pick one and put that as your goal. So let's say it's 10,000 words and you're going to write a short story in 10,000 words. You have to be very precise and concise about what it is that you're wanting to tell and how you are going to tell it. You have to be very, very purposeful. To me, there's less there's less pantsing and more plotting for a short story, because you are really having to condense. And if you have write-a-series-itis, it's going to be that much harder. So you have to give yourself a nice little box to fit into. That being said, the milestone method, which you guys have heard me talk about over and over again, is how I would set it up. So you draw the horizontal line, you make 3 big slashes, your beginning, your middle, your end, and then the little tick marks in between that help guide you through that. That's how I would do it. You have your word count goal, you have your milestone method outline, which, if you guys are new and you have not heard me talk about the milestone method, it is a part of a worksheet that I created called the Getting Your Story Started worksheets. You can, down below is the link to my website. If you subscribe to the website, it's free. You get 3 worksheets, one of which is going to help you figure out how to build out your milestone method. Build out your outline using the milestone method. So just so that way, kind of get everybody caught up to what I'm rambling about. And then I would break it down even further into how many words per chapter do you want to have? This is what I would do personally. And so let's just do some quick math here. So we got 10,000 words. I like to typically divide my chapters up between 15 and 2,500 words for first draft. So let's just say 1,500 words. That's 6 chapters-ish, right? So if you know that you're going to have 6 chapters, it makes it that much easier to then plan out, because when you do, trying to get back to my timer here, when you get yourself set up, you can go, okay, I have to tell a story, not in just 10,000 words, but in 6 chapters. How do I do that? What story am I going to tell in 6 chapters? And again, I mean, it's like 6.6 times infinity. So you have to, it could be 6, 7, there's going to be a little bit of a range there. But setting yourself up like that, crunching the numbers down so that way you understand exactly what it is that you're going to be working with, makes it so much easier to write a short story. Same thing with a series. You have to look at that particular book. If you want to have a certain number of chapters, some authors don't care. Some authors are like, it has to fit in this. If your writing goal is 75,000 words, then you divide that by the number of by the number of words you want in a chapter, or divide it by the number of chapters, and that tells you how many words. I like doing it by word count, because that's where my range is between that 1,500 and 2,500 mark. That averages out to between a 7 to 8 minute read time, which is a really nice bingeable read time. So it makes people want to continue, especially if you have a fast pace. You need to have a slightly faster than usual pace with a short story, because you have to keep people engaged. If it's slow, if you're going to go a slow burn route, it has to be a quick slow burn, because you need to get someone to the end without losing their interest. If it's a shorter book, shorter chapters, they might read it and be like, I mean, it didn't really waste that much time, like an hour maybe. But you want to try to make it engaging. So a quick slow burn, that would be my recommendation for that. Plan it out, crunch the numbers down, have it make sense to you. Give yourself that little bit of a constraint, and then your brain is going to do the rest. Your brain is going to get it all figured out as you go, if you want to try and pants it. Or you can sit down and actually plot it out and go that route. So that's all the time I'll take on that one. Did that in 8 minutes. And I am just on fire today. For those of you who haven't watched me, I tend to ramble, and I tend to ramble a lot. And for that, I do apologize to pretty much everybody. Let's see here. Next one. Boom. How do writers or authors pick the genre for their books? That sounded like an easier question to answer when I was staring at it last night. That was probably because my brain was literally a pile of mush after watching like 3 different webinars, and then like 4 webinars the previous day. Okay, so picking a genre. First, you have to have a story. The story that you have, at its core, can fit into any genre. Boy meets girl can fit into romance, most typically in romance. It could be in fantasy, it could be in mystery, it could be in horror, it could be in thriller, it could be in paranormal. There's a lot of that in paranormal, maybe because it's just like vampires and werewolves. And don't get me wrong, I like vampires and werewolves. I think there's some interesting storytelling, but that is literally what that entire genre has turned into, is basically a vampire werewolf fest that it's boy meets werewolf, or a girl meets werewolf boy, and it's regurgitating Twilight is all that it's doing. Paranormal, like, I swear to goodness, it's going to be one of those things one day that it's going to just push my buttons enough where I'm going to have to write just a really damn good paranormal book and show people, like, this is what you can do without that. All of that. Don't do it. There's actually more to storytelling than angsty girl meets angsty wolf boy and bestiality. That's what it is. Sorry, I'm calling it as I see it. Vampires, necrophilia. Calling it how it is. Maybe the most unpopular opinion of the day, but I'm just calling it how I see it. Sorry. I don't believe anybody writes trash, but I believe that is getting really close. Well, actually, I take that back. What's the not Twilight? The one that Twilight was based, or that you had Twilight, the fan fiction of Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey. That is garbage. That is just pure 100% garbage. She might be a talented writer, but from what I've heard people talk about it, it's not good. Not good at all. Okay, before I get too much farther down that ranty rabbit hole, that is going to be my new saying, ranty rabbit hole. Note that, ranty rabbit hole. Picking a genre, you have to pick something that you feel. Thank you, Verity. I appreciate your support of the ranty rabbit hole. I'm gonna have to turn that into some sort of viral hashtag or something, because it's awesome. It's just like overly villainous villains who revel in villainy. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to trademark that and make millions of dollars. So picking a genre, you need to figure out what genre is actually going to help enhance your story. Because I could write the story that I have now in any, my fantasy story at its core, I could take and put into any genre that I wanted to. Many of the writing prompts, especially the writing prompts in, I believe it was my worksheet, Breaking Through the Wall of Writer's Block. I make them genreless, so you can essentially put them anywhere that you want. And whether it's a fantasy or sci-fi or any combination, you can do that. You have to think of your story in that way. Now, if you love writing fantasy, you're probably going to have a natural pull to fantasy or sci-fi or any of the other genres. I have that pull for those two particular genres. I am going to be writing in different genres at some point. But to pick, you have to see what's going to enhance it. Does it make sense? If you're writing a mystery, right? That can be just straight up mystery. It could be in a real world. It could be 1920s. It could be in 2021, whatever. Or you could take that mystery and put it into sci-fi. You could put it into romance. You could put it into fantasy. You could put it into a thriller. It's all a matter of the pacing, the world building, and does it enhance the story, or is the core of the story lost? I was trying to think of an example of this, because I had a Is that the Journey Verity? Is that what you're talking about there when you talk about literally wrote a high fantasy detective story? Because I'm super curious. Nope, different one. Okay, The Claw. Okay. So I haven't read that one, so I cannot attest to that. But that is a great example. And now I'm super intrigued by that. So you should probably. That's book 3. I have to wait for Verity. You're teasing. That's not nice, man. So in Verity's case, she wrote a high fantasy detective novel. So you can do these kinds of things. Don't feel like you're restricted to one particular genre because that's the one that's everybody knows about, right? You can take and mold and twist and turn and form it into something that you want it to be. Now, the caveat to that is that you have to understand the purpose and how, at least a little bit, you're going to market it. If you're going to genre mash, or if you do the genre mash, if you're going to do something like that, you have to then think about, okay, is there a niche that this will fit into? So there's sci-fantasy. It's sci-fi and fantasy mixed together. There's dungeon punk. I didn't even know what that was until like last month. Dungeon punk is Dungeons and Dragons essentially meets steampunk. That it sounded friggin' amazing to me. So you have to be very purposeful when you're doing that to find the niche before you start writing. Sometimes you can, if you want to forge your own path and create a new niche, more power to you. It's going to be that much harder to try and sell your book. You have to be realistic about that. While it is possible, you just have to understand it is going to be harder. Because when you niche down, you can have good success with that. You just have to be purposeful. Purposefully choose what is going to enhance your story, what's going to play to your strengths. Most of my writing has a thriller fantasy feel. For those who have read my fan fiction, I have a very thriller-like pace in most of my books. And that is because of the chapter length that I chose to write. It keeps things moving constantly. And I give them very little room to breathe in that. Thriller fantasy is kind of what I do. Even in this my new fantasy novel, my original, I have that thriller-like pacing because of chapter length, because of the story, and that's where my skill set kind of is. So understand what you want to work with, and then start there. And if you're writing it and you're like, I don't feel like this is the right fit, change it. Just be purposeful about what it is that you're changing it to. All right. I used up almost all 10 minutes of that. I'm feeling pretty good. And I managed to fit at least one rant into the live stream. I'm feeling really good about this today. All right. And so we got 20 minutes left. And I have 10, 20, 30. Okay, I'm going to have to hurry it up with with a few of these. Next question is, how are authors able to develop a plot and then proceed to write the whole series? I'm going to just take not 15 seconds. That won't be enough. I'll take 5 minutes for this one. Again, very similar to that overarching theme that we talked about at the very beginning of the stream. You have to take that step back and you have to look at that big picture and how all the pieces fit together. Now, if you are writing a trilogy and not a huge series, that does become a little bit easier because you're not having to give it quite as far out. But you take a look at that trilogy and go, okay, here's the story. Now you can have a story without a plot. How do I know this? Because I wrote the entire first draft of my book without a plot. It was literally started with the main character running for her life, and I ended the first draft knowing how I wanted to end it, but not really knowing why they needed to get from point A to point B. That was literally the entire first draft. I just kept writing and I just pants it just to see what happens, just for giggles. But I didn't have a plot. And it wasn't until I had a developmental editor look at my book. Yes, even though I am a developmental editor, I still needed somebody to look over my stuff. It actually ended up working really well because we exchanged edits. She actually won a developmental edit from me, and then as a thank you, she reciprocated that and did a developmental edit on my book. But I actually had to sit down and look at the notes that she had. And then I actually went through my own worksheet. I created the freaking thing. And I went through it. I was like, okay, well, I guess this will prove if it works or not. Because if it's me doing it, then I should theoretically be able to come up with a plot. And I kid you not, going through my own worksheet, I created it, but coming at it from the point of view of using it to develop my plot, I was able to come up with something that was 10 times better than what I had previously thought of. And it stemmed primarily around the who, what, when, where, why, the 5 whys, I think, of plot building, I think is what I called it. But I had to go through and I had to answer every one of those questions. And it forced me to think and to process and be purposeful. Does my plot take place in the past? So the world is young, and this is the way that I was looking at it for my story. The world's younger. This particular race is at the peak of its empire. Present, where the empire's crumbled, and this is the race that the main character Trinia comes from. It's crumbled, it's disintegrated, it's more into like little tribal areas. And magic is, you can use it, but there's fewer people. Or the future, which is where magic is kind of all but dead. And like their race is just a legend. Like no one even knows they really exist anymore. I went with the present one and started working through that. That is a similar kind of thing that you need to do. If you need help with that, I have the plot donut available on my website. Again, the link is down below to that. It's $5. I mean, it's $5 and like 13 pages, just full of prompts and walkthroughs of how to actually take your story from just a story, or a plain donut, to like a chocolate covered sprinkle mess that is delicious for everyone to consume. Like that was literally the analogy that I used while building that thing. So that would be my recommendation to you, is that you have to see that big picture. You have to actually think of what is the purpose. That is the plot. The plot is purpose. What is the purpose of the story? What takes the characters from point A to point B? Their motivations, all of that is wrapped up into the plot. And you have to figure that out. You can do it after you've written a first draft. You can do it before you do a first draft. I did it after. Oh, I went over time. Shoot. Well, it was a good run. So you can do it over time or before. It's up to you as to what's going to be the most comfortable for you, and it's going to feel the most authentic to kind of your writing style. Okay, next one is, when is the best time to come up with a title for your book? 5 minutes on the clock. Bam. I don't know. I think that you definitely should have some sort of working title, even if you don't like it. So for example, I did one of those rando name generator things on Facebook. So it's like take the first letter. So it has the thing and you fill it out. You pick the first letter of your first name and then the first letter of your last name. And then it correlates to something on the chart. And then you put that there and that's what it comes up with. That's what I did. And that's how I got the title for my novel. Normally those things don't really work out for me. This one worked out really, really well. So I had my title before I had a character, before I had a plot, before I had a story. I had the title. So yeah, it was actually pretty neat. It was definitely not what I was expecting. Because again, the way my name is Stephen Howard, it usually ends up with some just completely nonsensical gibberish, and it's not worth it. This one actually ended up being worth it. But the the way that you can do that, and actually I tackle this, excuse me, you could tackle this particular subject in the brainstorming worksheet, because I have a name storming section. It's primarily for, naming characters, and you just kind of scribble down everything if you don't want to use a name generator. If you have Android, because I don't know whether Apple has it or not, Lore Forge is the app to get, because it does names of cities, both modern and fantasy, pubs, ships, streets. It gives you plot motivations. It's actually a really cool app. I use it primarily for names for the characters that I don't really care about. I've named my entire world through the use of that app. So super great. Lore Forge. It's a anvil and a horse head within that, and it's red, and it should be in Google Play. But the name storming section of my brainstorming worksheet, which you get for free if you subscribe to my website, and the subscription is free. You can actually brainstorm your title ideas, and it's the same thing. You write down every idea that comes to mind, and then you rank them from 10 to 1, not from 1 to 10, 10 to 1. You're filtering down. Then you take those top 3 and then you brainstorm them again. What ideas do you have for those? Do they match up with your story? If so, great. You take those 3, then you pick the top 2, and then you pick out of that. You filter it down slowly but surely. Some people name their books right away. That's how it happened for me. I lucked out. A lot of other people, they will be partway through and the name will just kind of just jump right out at them. Others, they have to get to the end of the book. And typically I choose my book titles based on the setting in that particular book, or the overarching theme, depending on the type of book. And Verity says, I called the Journey as yet unknown for or for about a year after starting it. You just having a placeholder, right? I understand the need for wanting a name. I really do, because it makes your book feel real when you have that. If someone's asking you, so what are you writing? And you're just like, well, it's this incredibly vague thing that I'm super excited about. It's frustrating. I don't know what to call it, but it's great. And you don't feel good about that, right? Now, if someone comes up and asks me, so what are you writing? I'm like, I'm writing The City of Snow and Stars. And then I do a mic drop and then I walk away, because that is the name that I got out of the name generator, was The City of Snow and Stars. And look at that time on that one. I mean, seriously, I just mic dropped it at the end of that. For real though, if you want a brainstorming worksheet that's going to help walk you through that, go subscribe to the site. Link is down below. If you are partway through your book and you're still not really sure what it is, look at those chapters. Look at the themes, the characters, the symbolism that you have, because we all have it to some extent. Figure out what that is, and then you can actually start building it from there. All right, so we got 10 minutes left and in 2 minutes or 2 questions left. Look at that. We're rocking it. If you guys want me to start timing it so that way I can actually get through questions without ranting all the time, let me know in the comments or down, or let me know in chat, or let me know down in the comments. If you're liking what you're seeing and you enjoy my ranting and just the craziness of this bald bearded dude who wears a Writing Facts shirt, then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell, because I got lots of content videos coming your way. Self-editing is going to be a fan favorite. I have a pro writing aid versus Grammarly coming up. That one's in the process of finishing being editing. Damn, it's empty. Not enough. Okay, I promise I won't take away I won't take away the ranty rabbit hole. I'll find at least one thing to rant about per live stream, I promise. Okay, so second to last question. How do authors who sell ebooks on Amazon for 99 cents justify the time invested in writing the book? 5 minutes on the clock. That's a really great question, because honestly, I mean, if you've been writing for any amount of time, you know how incredibly difficult it is to write a book. It is the best, worst form of torture that you're ever going to put yourself through, because you're going to feel extremely accomplished by the time that you get done with it. But good Lord, does it take a lot of work. So, and Verity is in the process of actually publishing her book, which if you guys didn't see the interview with her, check out my other videos. I'll actually put a card, a link up above to that, so that way you can watch that video. But she knows she's going through the whole process right now. I mean, she's written the book. She's publishing the book. As far as I know, she's still waiting for the publisher to get her the books. So posting your stuff on Amazon is for 99 cents is a catch-22, right? Because you are essentially trying to invite someone in with no risk. They're risking 99 cents. That's their risk factor. So if you're a new author, let's say you've written 150,000 words, right? And no one's going to publish that traditionally, or if they do, it's very, very rare, because they're not willing to take the risk that you're going to sell. Typically 50 to 75,000, that's publishing range. But it's a really easy way to ease people in to your story, into your audience. Now, this is typically done when you have a series completed. This is not typically a standalone book. It is the carrot that suckers them in, and then you've trapped them at that point. The way that I've seen it work successfully, or heard it work successfully from published authors, is that you have 3 books. You have the first one at 99 cents. That's the poll. This is a full novel. This isn't, one of those 30-page, little pamphlet things that they're going to go and then it's done. This is a full-size book. 99 cents. The next book is half whatever the normal price is. Like, so most people are willing to pay about $10 at the highest for an ebook. Your average price range is around $3.99 to $5.99. So you could do that price point, and then the third book is full price or $10.99. So you've drawn people in for 99 cents, and they're like, wow, I really like this book. Does this author have anything else? As a matter of fact, I do. And then they buy the next book. And then they're willing to pay more as they go up through the books. You could also do this for a paperback. You could have 99 cents for the full book, but if they want that physical copy, it's a full 15. Because like $15.99 is kind of your typical price, $14.99 to $15.99. So when you think about it that way, is it worth the time? Not at first. In the long run, yes. You're playing a long game. You can either sell a little and make a lot, or you can sell a lot that it's going to transition into a lot more in the long run. Because if you can get the people in to and enjoy your madness and tangle them up in all the angsty feels, if that's your thing, that's my thing. I tangle people up in angsty feels, and then they're basically trapped there. Then you now have started building a base, a reader base. This can actually work very well if you're trying to kind of start your own niche. Is you write the novel. I recommend not writing something that's 100 to 150,000 words and then selling it for 99 cents. You can, but in terms of time and the investment in that time, it's okay. Doing 50 to 75,000, maybe 90, in comparison to what you're going to be charging for it, is a much better investment in time. People are more willing to commit to something that's 50 to 75,000. And so if you get them in and the next book is 100 to 150,000, they're much more likely to still pick that up because they like your style. So is it worth the investment? Yes. But you need to be ready for playing the long game with that. And typically you want to do it after if you're writing a series, after you've gotten through the series. That's kind of your freebie. I would recommend, if you want to have something that's 99 cents and the book that's still full price, do some sort of a short prequel. And by short, I mean like 25,000 or less. 99 cents that leads up to and builds all of this anticipation for, and then you can sell the book at a normal price if it's a standalone. That would be my recommendation for that. All right, last question of the day with 2 minutes to go, so we'll go a little over. I understand if you guys got to go, but if you love hearing the sultry sounds of my voice, then stick around. What strategies do you use to foreshadow when you write? I am definitely going to need a time limit on this because I could go on about this forever. When I foreshadow, I am leaving little breadcrumbs along the way. And I believe I've touched on this before, but you need to do a building up. I think we talked about this. It might have been at the beginning of the month during the last live stream, or possibly the one before that. But layering, you want to layer everything on top of each other. So as the reader is digging through the layers, they are discovering all of these pieces. So the way to kind of try and think about it is like this. Your reveal, your plot twist, that thing that you're building up towards, is actually at the bottom. It is at the bottom. This is where you have to start. What is it that you want to be so twisty and turny and just spectacular? You start there. Then you start layering it backwards. Not literally in the book, just in your head. It's these steps, right? Because then you finally work up to what's that first little crumb, that first nugget of information that the reader gets that makes them go, and they don't have a luscious man beard like I do. So, it'll be a little bit sadder for them. So they won't have that. So you got to kind of help compensate for it. So as they start digging down through these layers as they go, as you lead them through that. I was actually surprised I was able to do it with a straight face, to be honest. As they work their way down, they're coming across those little nuggets that you left behind for them, and they're going, wait, no. And you want some red herrings. You want, so think of it this way, gold, right? Those gold nuggets, those real treasures, you need to pair up at times with fool's gold to throw them off, because you don't want them to get to that before you're ready for them. If you want them to, that's different. That's a different type of setup. That is typically where you basically make them feel smarter than the character without them thinking that the character is incompetent. Because as soon as they believe the character is incompetent, that character is now just kind of like, they're not interesting anymore. So different kind of layering. With that kind of layering, you're going to do it a little bit sooner, right? Because your character is essentially on the same journey. They're trying to figure out what that is. So your base is here. Your reader figures it out here. Character figures it out here. And then it's all revealed. Or you have to do it in fairly quick succession. If you're going to do it, maybe within a chapter or two. Depends on the story. Depends on how you're building it up. It depends if you can still keep that believability about your character in being competent, that the reader doesn't go, man, this guy, he really should have got it. Like one of the ways that I did that with my character Udar in my Lord of the Rings fan fiction series was he's in doing a scene from villain POV can be a way to do that. That's true. You could do that as well. And that then still creates the believability. The villain knows what the truth is, or someone knows what the truth is, but they're keeping that from the main character in such a way that the character would not be able to figure that out. And so like the way that I did that, so like Udar, spoilers for anybody who hasn't read the books, my fan fiction, Udar has a daughter that he does not know about. Now, he received a letter from the wife that he basically abandoned, but he never opened it. Boromir finds it, because Boromir's alive. Surprise. Reads it and was like, wow, this guy is an awful jerk. But he doesn't tell, he doesn't tell Udar about it. So you know that this thing is out there. You know what the girl's name is. And so when Udar meets her, you're going, oh my word. And he sees it, but he refuses to acknowledge it. He's in denial. That is one way that you can keep a character's competency, is they just straight up say, I refuse to believe. The awkwardness was real. And especially because I put them specifically in shortly after, I have a scene where his daughter's crying. Again, he doesn't know. or he does, but he's refusing to believe it. And he's convinced himself of this, where he sees her and starts interacting with her. And he's kind of like, man, I wonder if this would be like if I had a daughter. And he's being very fatherly to her, but it's because he knows in his heart, he knows that it's his daughter, but he refuses to accept that because he can't handle the shame that comes with that association, because it means that he abandoned his pregnant wife. So, and all of this, it's not expressly said. This is my own insights into Udar, but that's why it worked. And when they finally figure it out, it's a very interesting reveal that I finally do, because he finally has to accept it. And it's basically, as soon as he does, he's ripped away from her, because I tangle people up in the angsty feels. So that aside, when you are wanting to foreshadow, you start with what it is that you want to reveal, and you work your way backwards. You build up the layers that you want the reader to then dig down through to get to. And because then you control their momentum, you control the trajectory. You can take them all over. It doesn't have to be straight down. You could take them in loop-de-loops. You can do whatever you want. But you have to figure out what it is that you want to reveal. Start working backwards from there. Thank you guys so much. This was super fun. I did go a little bit over today, even with a timer. But we got to all of the questions that I had discovered. Thank you so much for interacting. For those of you who are going to be watching this afterwards, make sure that you comment down below. Let me know some of what your tactics are for foreshadowing, picking genre, picking a title, because ultimately you're going to help other people too, because other people are going to read the comments. It's not just me here, going down the ranty rabbit hole about what I do. We're a community of writers, right? That's why we have our own hashtags, because we are just that freaking cool. So comment down below. If you haven't, again, go subscribe to my website. You're going to get 3 free worksheets. You're going to learn how to brainstorm. You're going to learn how to do the milestone method, and you're going to learn how to build more interesting and more relatable characters that have a lot of depth. And you can use it for pretty much anything. You can self-examine if you want. And then make sure to subscribe to the site. All it takes is a click down below, somewhere right around here. I always forget, because it's always switched around. So I feel like whenever I do this, it's going to show up on this side. So, if a card comes up over here, somewhere down below here, this general region, go subscribe, hit the bell. I'm going to have a new video coming next week. That one is going to be the Grammarly versus Pro Writing Aid review. And it's a 17 minutes long. It was like 30, and my video editor worked a miracle and managed to take it down to the timeline that I had asked, because I knew that you guys don't want to hear me go on too many tangents. So be looking forward to that. This next Friday is going to be that one. And I also have some other videos in the works. If I can get them up sooner, I'm definitely going to be able to, I'm going to try and do that for you guys. So thank you guys again so much for watching this live stream, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.